Christy Manley, and I am Director of Assessment and Evaluation for AMTEC, and my real job is a professor at Ferris State University. I'm a teacher educator, and I think it's important that you understand philosophically where we're coming from with AMTEC and what we believe in. One, we don't believe in the bell curve, but if you did believe in the bell curve, then 68% of your students would be making C's, 14 B's and D's, and 2% A's and F's. Well, good old Benjamin Bloom told us that if you have one teacher to one student, you can get that kind of curve. So the next time you negotiate your contract schools, please remember that. But since that's not likely at most of our school systems, if we believe in what's called mastery learning, we would have no failures. And so AMTEC was set up with that philosophy. So those of you that have ever had me as a professor have been indoctrinated in this philosophy, and that's what we're replicating in AMTEC. And so the philosophy is that you teach a unit, you then give a test. For that particular test, we'll call it formative A, we set a standard, let's just say 80%. If you don't get 80%, you have to do correctives and retest. Here's the problem, is if that particular, the way that you taught it was with a lecture, the corrective cannot be that same lecture slower and louder. Do you understand? They didn't get it as a lecture. And so one of the best things we can do is for the students that did get it, have their enrichment activity be tutoring the kids that didn't get it. Now, we still have a lot of teachers out there that don't believe formative A should be worth the same as formative B, but I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but some of you took your driving test twice, and we don't make you put a 2 on your car to let us know you were a 2-timer. And yet, why is it that we will penalize you if you have to take an algebra test twice? We'll give you an A in fractions, an F in decimals, and a C in math, and wonder why you can't calculate interest. It's just as ludicrous to think about us giving a pilot an A in takeoffs, an F in landings, and a C in flying. So if industry, I don't want to be on that plane, but if industry did tell us that there are 110 competencies that they want us to teach these students, that means we have to teach 110. And that not all students are going to learn it the first time you teach it. Some students need more time. And we have an entire school system and an entire college system based on clock time, not competence. And so when we talk about philosophically changing what we're talking about, that's what we're talking about. Industry has told us what the competencies are. It's up to us at the college level to figure out what that takes. And that does mean IQ as we currently know it is rate of learning. Students with high IQs just learn it faster. And so we've got to get that figured out, folks. That's the important thing. And we believe we've given you the assessments to make that happen. Okay, so let's talk about the multi-skilled maintenance. Remember, phase 1 was to develop the standards. We did that with the DACM. There are a total of 19 duties and 110 tasks that industry said that we should teach. And those are the standards that everything is geared to. That's the sacred stuff that we don't mess with. Phase 2 was to turn over all of those standards to faculty and say slice and dice it into curriculum. They sliced it into 13 courses and 57 modules. And then phase 3 was to have the AMTEC test and certification. We currently have a comprehensive test that measures all 110. We have 13 end of course or diagnostic assessments, and every module has a pre and a post test. So the process we used to identify the standards was with a DACM. DACM stands for Develop a Curriculum. The philosophy of DACM is you get people together that earn their living doing something. You say, tell me what you do. They did 110 things, and so we're going to be teaching those 110 things. Faculty then take that list of things and they turn it into student learning outcomes. And the example I use all the time is industry told us they want to be able to troubleshoot a circuit. No place in the DACM do you see Ohm's law. As a faculty member, we have to know that in order for them to troubleshoot a circuit, I have to teach them Ohm's law. Okay, now that's where the student learning outcomes come in, as to where we take that list and we turn it into student learning outcomes. Sometimes that has been a problem, as Walt talked about, but that is the critical piece of being able to turn those outcomes oops, go back. Okay, so we have 3 levels of assessment. We have that big comprehensive test that covers all 19 duties and 110 tasks. It's 187 multiple choice questions. We have those 13 diagnostic tests and the 57 pre and post tests. Now, the comprehensive test is multiple choice. It was developed solely by industry, and it is delivered by NOCTI. NOCTI is our platform. If you wanted to buy that test, you have to contact NOCTI, and you pay them and you get access to the test. The 13 diagnostic tests are a subset of the DACM, so we took the DACM, sliced it into actually 12, but we understand PLC, Siemens, and Allen Bradley. And so a subset of the DACM, so it's aligned directly to that list of 110 and the subset it represents. And it is also delivered by NOCTI. So if you want to take that, you have to contact NOCTI. And we have Anne from NOCTI that is going to be explaining how you do that in just a few minutes. So you will understand exactly how you go about the process of doing that. The 57 pre and post tests were developed by faculty, and they are aligned to the student outcomes for the modules. So it's important there that you understand the distinction as to what they are aligned to, who created them, and how they are administered. Those pre and post tests are part of the learning management system. You get those when you take the modules. Now let's talk about that big comprehensive exam that is delivered by NOCTI. There currently is only one version of it. It is validated. It has been administered to thousands of workers. The process was very simple. We did the DACM. We Delphied that DACM to validate it. We then identified the core standards. We wrote the test. We then pilot tested the test. And then we got a group of industry people together who set the passing score. And I don't want to hear any more whining about the passing score. Okay. The test specification for that big comprehensive test is based on the Delphi that we did, where we sent that out to industry and we said we want you to rate it on a 4-point scale. Things that they rated more important have more test questions. That's literally how the test was developed. And so the process then was we took the task within the DACM, and as you can, oh, they don't see the mouse movement, okay. But as you see for example, under E43, we needed 3 questions, and we had a wonderful thing happen to us as we were starting this process. Toyota opened up its entire item bank as well as some of the other companies, and so you can see we had 49 test questions, we only needed 3. And so we asked industry, pick the best 3 you can find on that. And that's how the test literally was developed. When there were no test questions, we had to have them write those test questions. Then we set the passing score. And you can see that the passing score is by section. So section A has 13 questions. The passing score for that section is 76.9. And the overall passing score, if you look down with 187 items, is 82.4. Industry told us that in order to be certified as a multi-skilled maintenance person, you need to get 82.4% of those items correct. Now, the data, the pilot test data, we gave to 228 people. They didn't do so hot on it, but remember, they had never been trained in any multi-skilled maintenance, and we only had, I believe, 1 person pass out of the 228. The process, though, of developing the passing score, there are many ways that you can develop a passing score, but anytime you're going to use a test to govern someone's wages and earning potential, the passing score cannot be arbitrary and capricious. You just can't say 80% or 75%. So the process, and the only process I'll defend if there's ever litigation on it, is that we ask industry to take the test, to look at the test item by item, and we ask them, is it essential that a candidate answer this item correctly in order to be certified as a multi-skilled automotive maintenance technician? It's a yes/no decision. Now, they did not make that decision arbitrarily. They had data in front of them, so they had the test question. The right answer to number 1 was A, and only 65% of the 228 people that took it as a pilot got it right. So they had to make a decision. If your current workforce doesn't know the answer to that, how important is it? Okay, and then they would say, yes, they need to know it, or no, they don't, and then I tallied up the yeses, and it came out to be 82.4% had to know the answer to that question. So we had a vendor at the time that was administering the test. These were the people that took the test, the groups that took the test with our original vendor before we contracted with NOCTI. With that particular vendor, that test was given 1,600 times and only 7 passed. Okay? 3 incumbent workers from Toyota and 4 from Nissan. And we've had no other people pass that test. Now, that does not mean that they're not passing sections. That just means they're not passing the overall. They don't know all of the content. So, since we now have contracted with NOCTI, we've given that test 204 times. And the nice thing about having NOCTI as the vendor is NOCTI is maintaining the data and getting us all sorts of great data on the demographics of the people that are taking it. 150 of those people that took that test since 2012 are from business and industry. 54 are from our post-secondary Perkins schools. Okay? And I'm going to be showing you the data on that. So this is the percentage of the test results, and I'm going to be going over that so that you'll see how the data works. But the red line are the post-secondary schools, and the blue line are the business and industry folks that have taken the test. Clearly, business and industry are outperforming our post-secondary kids that are taking the test. Now, if we look at the cut score, and this is the information, this is the passing score, that blue line that you're seeing there. And if we look at this red line is the overall average, and the next line, the green line, are the business and industry people that took the test, and these are our post-secondary students. If you look at the gap, and this is where the gap of where there's at least 35 percentage points different between where the cut score is and where the average score is, you will see that the little arrows that I have there are the ones that there's the biggest gap. Okay, so if we look at the data, we now know where to concentrate, where they are not performing well, and where they are not meeting the passing score. Now, if we look at by duty, this is the overall percent passing, and you can see that there are sections where we have very, very few people passing. This is the percent passing of the business and industry, and this is the percent passing of our post-secondary students. And if you look at all of the areas that are very few are passing, we've got lots of areas that they're not passing the overall. Now, here's what they get when you do the test. You get participant level feedback by duty area. Do you see where it says this is the number of test questions, this is your percent correct, NI means needs improvement, and these are the sections you passed. So they do get specific feedback on the sections. Also, you can get a task level which means that for J70, there were 2 items and they got both of those correct. Do you see? It would even give them the number by specific task. Then we also can give you program level data, which means if you had, say, 20 students take it or 20 incumbent workers, it will tell you the percent of that group that you had that got it right. And so you can get participant level feedback to be able to target where you need to work. We just did an analysis for Nissan. I know they're going to talk in a few minutes, but you can see this is telling them that in task A4, only 19% of their group got that right, and that's the AMTEC module. They might get that, they might recommend that they take. So everything now that the curriculum is done is linked back to which module will remediate that. So that's a powerful tool that we've been able to do now that the curriculum is done. Now, when we do the analysis on sources of training, this is the data on where did you receive your training, and this first one is if you went to a trade school, this was your average. This is the average if you went to, I'm not sure I can read that, comprehensive high school. Oh yeah, and this is the one, look at the military. I suggest that we just quit all this training stuff and send them all to the military because they outperformed everybody, okay, if they went through military training. That's the green line, and then the next line is if you went through an apprentice program. The next line is, and I can't read that, so can you see it? External? Okay, yeah, I can read it better there. And then there's the community colleges, so you're not so hot either, and then the last one is a 4-year college, and that they're not so hot either. So that's, we can analyze the data on where they got their training, and these are all the areas. Let me go back so you can see. These, the little arrows that I have there are all the areas that the military outperformed. Okay? That's what I'm saying. I recommend that we just take them all to the military because that's where they're getting the training. Education level. This is if you went to high school, if your highest level of education was high school, this was the graph by duty area. Just look what happens though when we give them high school with a little extra training. Isn't that wonderful? Right, so even if they don't have an associate degree, folks, all we have to do is give them a little extra training and they can increase their scores. And this is if they do have an associate degree. Bachelor's and master's didn't help that much, okay? But that does give you an idea of how they perform based on their level of education. Okay. Next one is years of experience in the field, and this is 1 to 3 years, and I'm just going to kind of click through these. You will see that years of experience sometimes hurts. And it doesn't always help to be having lots of years of experience, okay? And that a lot of times the young people do really good on that. Job title, we ask them, what's your current job title? We would expect that if you are in maintenance, you would have scored high, and they didn't necessarily always score higher. If you're an electrician, you should have scored higher on the electrician. That did not always happen either. And then these different areas, die maker, machinist, and supervisors. Oh, they're clueless. Okay, so we ask them what their current job was. And then we can analyze that data. The future plans, we know that we have some issues with the test. We know that we need to update it. We are currently going in the process of re-delphing it, of trying to get industry to revalidate. So y'all can quit whining about having laser etcher questions. We're tired of hearing it. They probably will come out in the next round, but when industry told us the first time laser etcher had to be on it, it's on it. And but I think in the future probably that will come out, I hope, and we will hopefully develop another version. The next thing we'll talk about is the diagnostic tests that are a subset and that are administered by NOPTI. There are 13 of those, or there will be 13 of those, and those are aligned to the course titles or topic levels, we sometimes call them. The process for doing those, we developed, finished the pilot testing of those back in May. We are now in the process of establishing passing scores on those, and I anticipate, we're hoping by the end of the year that those tests would be out there released for purchase. Let's hope. These were the companies that sent people to help develop those, so those tests were developed last year with the help of all of these companies. Quite an exciting time. Here's the wonderful part about these particular tests. Okay, is that if there are 7 modules, there are 7 sections. And so the students who take that test may not know it, but every time the section changes, that means it's a new module. And so, for example, the basic electricity and electronic test is 4 modules, and it's 150 questions. And this is the subset of each one of those that the DACM assigns. So you can see there are 11 questions on A1 and 14 on A2 and 13 on A3. Those line up to module 1071. So there will be 4 passing scores. You may pass modules 1 and 2, but have to take 3 and 4. So that's how the diagnostic test will be given. And since there is one for every module, we know that that can be very helpful in you working with your industry partners in order to give them the test and know which modules that their employees need. So we know that these are very much in demand. We know that industry wants them. We know that the schools want them. And possibly these could be the stackable credentials that all of us have been wanting and looking for. So currently the pilot test of those 13 tests is free to industry and candidates. We only want industry to pilot test it. They will receive diagnostic feedback after the test is validated, and the pilot candidates could receive feedback if they put their name on it. Some of them are not putting their name on the test though. Okay. So we have 8 of them that are ready for validation. We have 4 that need more pilot test takers. Industries, if you could step up and help us here and give more of these tests, it would really be wonderful. And the Siemens PLC test has not been developed because the curriculum wasn't ready at the time that we did that. So we will be doing that in a short time. These are ready for industry validation. I need 2 hours of industry time on a webinar to help me go through the test and establish the passing scores. So we're begging on our knees for industry to help us with the getting us people to help set these passing scores. We have some tentative dates scheduled, and we're hoping to get you all to help us get those tests validated so they can be out there. So the industry group, for 2 hours, they will be working with me on a webinar to establish the passing score. We think the uses are going to be tremendous for industry and schools because it will diagnose to that module level. So the future plans. Come on. Develop the PLC, the Siemens PLC one, validate the test of the 12. And in the future, we hope to have hands-on performance tests that would maybe be the scenario-based things that you heard about today. Now let's talk about those pre- and post-test modules. Remember now, these are aligned to the student outcomes. They are not aligned to the DACM. They are aligned to those student learning outcomes that the faculty created. In 2011 is when we brought the faculty together to develop those. We had we had several sessions where we brought them together, kicking and screaming and whining and all the faculty do. And then we developed the labs and the rubrics for the labs. And so, for example, AMTEC 1071, Introduction to Basic Electricity, has 21 labs. We now have it's called a fault tree, I think is what we're calling it. And it's all the potential faults that could be integrated into the simulator. And so what the fault description, how the faculty would set it up, what triggers it, and so forth. So we're hopefully building those things around the labs, around the faults that could be, or the bugs in the system. The rubrics look something like this, where, for example, if there is a tool selection and use, and you see the faculty would have to identify how well the student selected the equipment. Do you see it's 25 points? The rule is that 25 is the most points something can get, 20 is 5 is the least, and it has to be in increments of 5. So if the student gets an A, they get all 25 points. If the student gets a B, they get 80% of the points. If the student gets a C, they get 60%. So that's how we're able to score the rubric. That is in Moodle. We have heard massive whining about having to enter that data in Moodle, and that a lot of faculty are just printing off the rubric and just manually scoring it. But it would really help us out a lot if you could enter it in Moodle so that we all have access to how the students are performing on those labs. So this is basically the format for all of the rubrics. They all have points and hopefully enough descriptors that we get some kind of inter-rater reliability. These will be reviewed as we go through the curriculum and we figure out what worked well, what didn't work well. So it's a rubric. Now, so the plan is industry is currently reviewing all of these pre and post tests and the rubrics. And you heard some of that talk today about how they're reviewing all of the test items in the pre and post test and helping clean those up. So I want to spend a few minutes now talking about the learning analytics. I think you all will agree that we are sitting on a tremendous amount of incredible data. We're going to have all the pre and post test scores, all the lab rubrics. We're going to have data from all the diagnostic tests, the comprehensive tests, and hopefully college and industry surveys. The nice thing is that once we get all this data, my vision is that we will now be able to contribute to the knowledge base on what works and what doesn't work. So these are the things I'm suggesting that we might want to look at as we measure and go forward. Clearly we will be measuring inputs. Are we getting more enrollments? Are we getting the number of degrees and certificates? Is that increasing or decreasing, and how are students engaged? The efficiency, we want to look at the cost of training and the cost of the assessments. The reaction, we want to get reaction to how the students felt about the particular training, the rating of the quality of the training. We also want to get the learning, that's the easy part. How much did they learn? How did their scores go compared to pre and post? We want the application, so we want the percent of the employers and employees that are saying they're using the skills they learned. The big one and the ultimate is looking at the impact of that, hopefully measuring how the training program is driving business results. Things like productivity, less downtime, number of promotions, the students that are getting promoted, employer satisfaction with the people that are coming through, and any kind of awards. We want to quantify the number of awards any of these people are getting and any of the programs that we're doing are receiving. Now, we have been very excited about the career pathway that we have developed, and we made a lot of presentations on that career pathway. There currently are 5 ways people can enter this Megatronics pathway. You can be a secondary student articulating through a community college. You can be a post-secondary entering college for the first time. You can be post-secondary students seeking retraining. We understand there's a lot of those. Dislocated or unemployed workers entering, or incumbent workers who are just increasing their skills. My vision for this, having all this data, is it possible for us to be able in the future to have, this is the percentage of people passing the test, say in 2011 and 2012, and is it possible that with the kind of improvement, could we get everyone doing better? And so the vision is that with this data, we can continue to improve, and I believe strongly all students can learn, and you don't get this kind of growth by telling faculty to work harder next year. You have to have some kind of strategy and some kind of data analysis, and the goal is to use our data to get that. So we're looking at what is the difference in scores on the various AMTEC assessments and labs for those that use the curriculum and those that used a different curriculum. The sources of training or academic degrees and experience, is there variation? And you saw some of that data I was giving you. The year's experience, did they help? How it was delivered in traditional classroom versus an apprenticeship versus online versus a real flipped classroom. In other words, what works for what group of people and what works best for the AMTEC curriculum and what works best for employers. We also want to get into the test level item analysis, where what are the questions that people are missing consistently. The specific, because every test question is linked to either a DACM task or a student learning outcome. Are there certain outcomes that aren't being taught in the curriculum that need to be taught, or they're poorly taught? The specific standards, are there standards that are not being taught or poorly taught? And is there any relationship between faculty members' occupational experience and background and performance on those tests? And the last thing then, is there anything that would indicate technical issues that are preventing the successful outcomes, such things as those programs that implemented open entry, open exit competency-based versus those that aren't, those that are using that flipped classroom, the LMS, the learning management system, and the use of the AMTEC trainer or alternative simulators. How is that working? So that is the information on the assessments. And so before I bring the panel up, is there any question that I can answer? Yes.
On your overall certification, there were a number of sections, and I didn't understand if to earn the certification, would a person have to pass at 82% overall, or would they have to pass each individual section?
They can fail several sections and still pass. Yeah, they have to get 82.4% overall in order to receive the certification. But we know that's not happening. There's been some discussion on, is the passing score too high? We looked at it a second time, and industry said, nope, they're going through it item by item and said, no, they should know the answer, no, they should know the answer. And I think that the real issue is that we don't have a lot of Megatronic curriculum out there that teaches it all. They're teaching electrical or they're teaching mechanical, and they're not getting both, and they just don't have it yet. I think that's clearly going to change in the future. And once we read Delphi and get maybe some of the things out that need to be out and add some more things that maybe need to be added, it'll change.
What is industry doing with this data? Order comes out with substandard score.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fire them. You didn't, yeah, just fire them, yeah. You're going to hear that. You're going to hear industry tell us how they're using it. It's pretty neat. The goal isn't that people are losing their jobs. The issue is, now I know how to target my training, and that's really what they're using it for. And you'll hear that. And that was the goal of all of this. Just tell us what you need. And the issue is, and we did it. We released the test before we released the curriculum. It's like, don't tell me I don't know it if you can't fix it. And we did. And so then we released it, we told them you don't know it, and then we didn't have anything ready to fix it. So now we've got that ready. Now it's a whole systems approach. Other questions? Well, we're excited about it. We really think this is an exciting part.